What's up, everybody? Welcome to our podcast, Bench Warmerz. This is your boy, Lo, a.k.a. Loami Richardson, a.k.a., the Puerto Rican sensation. I'm just making up stuff. I want to introduce everyone to my co-host, Jonathan Castillo, a.k.a. Jono. Jono, let them know who you are, man. How you doing?
What up, man? Lo, what's up? I am super excited to finally get this going. This has been years and years and years of talk and preparation just to give the people some knowledge. We met back in 2008, and it's been a brotherhood ever since then. And sports is what actually got us together. I noticed you were a Mets fan when we first started working together in the summer camp. And we hit it off since then, and every summer and every now and then we get into really good debates and really good topic of conversation. So you finally agreed to do the podcast here with me, and I'm just excited, man. And I can't wait to finally get this going.
Man, I feel the same way, man. Like I said, we've known each other for a few years now, and what connected us was sports and our love for sports. And we have a little personal group chat that we have and follow. And so, usually the ones that end up debating is always Jono and myself. So, as we kind of, he shot the idea like, yo, we should do a podcast. I mulled on it and it's like, you know what, let's do it. And so we figured out the name Bench Warmers. We both had hoop aspirations, hoop goals, hoop dreams. And right now, we just kind of retired from the game. And so we're on the bench talking our smack. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk our talk.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast, and hopefully you guys will grow with us in this journey. Like I said, we're putting this thing together, and so we want to give what the people want. So we're gonna give them what the people want.
Oh yeah, big time. Big bench warmer myself now. I'm officially retired from playing the game of basketball. I read my retirement statement during quarantine to my fiance and my daughter, and I was greeted with many different reactions, as you can imagine.
Right.
Big shout out to my man Sam for giving us the name. I brainstormed some names with him too, and this was the best one that benefited the both of us who did have very high hoop aspirations and now currently rock the bench and provide insight.
Yes, sir. So we, John and I used to play in men's leagues, and and now that we're both retired officially, Jono is still in the game of basketball, and as an AAU coach and also a coach for is it varsity?
I am the JV head basketball coach at Timber Creek High School, district champions, 2020 district champions. I am one of the varsity assistants currently.
All right. So you're going to get a lot of expertise information with Jono. You're going to hear me just talk my junk. So, hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast series. But this one is going to be very centered around basketball. So obviously this is our first love. As we move forward, we are going to talk about other sport topics. But for this particular, we said we're going to launch this thing after the finals. As you guys well know, the Lakers end up winning their 17th NBA championship. Not every, the majority of the people watching the finals were probably Lakers fans, but for the most part, there was either people rooting for or rooting against LeBron James. Now, listen, I will always tell, I'm very unapologetic about this. I am an MJ fan. He is the GOAT of all GOATs, but we have this younger generation who thinks that, LeBron James is a GOAT. And so, the question we're going to be discussing right now, was this LeBron's easiest title run? Donna, what are your thoughts? Was this LeBron James' easiest title run?
Before I get into the question, I do want to say this. When the Lakers traded for Anthony Davis, the first thing I did was created a blog, and my very first blog announced the Lakers as the 2019-2020 NBA champions. I knew AD was the missing piece, and I knew teaming him up with LeBron was going to be beneficial. Obviously, my predictions was wrong on some of the offseason signings, but that's another topic of conversation. To answer the question, was this the easiest title run for the Lakers or for LeBron? I don't know. I don't think it was. I think he faced a lot of very hot teams in the bubble, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but the NBA bubble is its own environment in its own right. And I do think that the Lakers benefited from having veteran experience with LeBron, with Rondo, and even with the Lakers coaching staff, Jason Kidd. I don't know. I don't think that this was LeBron's easiest title run. I think LeBron met a lot of good teams during their peak. So the Blazers came off of some came off some injuries with some players. And they faced the Lakers. The Lakers weren't even favored to win that one. People said the Blazers were going to win.
There was
six,
really a media bias against the Lakers. I was one of them. I was really hoping that LeBron did not win his 4th NBA championship, not because I'm a LeBron hater per se, but because of the conversation of him being greater than Michael Jordan. It's easier to root against him than for him. That's just me. All right. So was this LeBron's easiest title run? You didn't really answer the question, Jono.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And the reason why I'm going to say no is because they played very good teams. The Lakers were just better. They were overall better, had more depth than every single team they played. Did we want to see the Clippers and the Lakers? Yes. As a basketball fan, absolutely.
Which is the point I'm going to make. So was this LeBron's easiest title run? Yes, it was. And here's why. Like, straight up, like, listen, you can only play who you play, right? You can only play the opponent that you're playing. Portland, we was kind of hoping Dame time will come through, but we knew deep in our hearts they weren't going to be a LeBron James AD team, So I was really hoping for Melo, to go back to, Denver Melo and drop 30 a night and just give, LeBron James a hard time. That wasn't the case. The second team they ended up playing was the Houston Rockets. They have no bigs, right? And so one thing about, the Lakers run and shout outs to Frank Vogel, who adjusted to every series. He never got stuck in one game plan. He adjusted very well to every series played. But then what we was anticipating, what the media was pushing, like the commercials are all ended up focusing on a Clippers-Lakers matchup. And I truly believe in my hearts of hearts that if the Clippers would have made it to the Western Conference Finals, that they would have beat LA. Not because of chemistry, but just the amount of talent. And I believe there's certain teams like the Clippers, and we've seen this over time, where they play to their level of competition, right? Some players elevate, other players, and the Clippers, I think they was just waiting so much to play the Lakers that they kind of underestimated the Nuggets. Nuggets show there, Jamal Murray did his thing. The Joker was doing his thing. But that was the first time in the Western Conference Finals, and experience took over. LeBron did his thing. So I'm going to say, yes, this was LeBron's easiest title run. There wasn't really any series that you felt like he was feeling a lot of pressure. I think that pressure was going to come with the Clippers, but the Clippers didn't do their thing. So the Lakers played who they played. And then when they played Miami, nobody expected Miami to be there, right? Nobody expected Miami to really give any competition to the Lakers. So was this LeBron's easiest title run? I think so. And there's going to be people going to disagree. Oh, they're going to give all the reasons why, why it wasn't so. But I believe this was LeBron's easiest title run only because everybody was anticipating and waiting for them to play the Clippers, and they did not play the Clippers. That was their toughest matchup. So that's my opinion, that this was LeBron's easiest title run. Now, does it negate the fact that he won a championship? No, that's not the argument. The question was this LeBron's easiest title run? Yes, it was.
Well, yes, let me ask you this. So we talk about the Clippers, and the media has definitely driven that narrative of LeBron versus the Clippers. Not so much the Lakers versus the Clippers, but LeBron versus Kawhi, right? The dynasty stopper, Kawhi Leonard, he's one of my favorite players. Right. But we look at the way the Clippers played the Mavs, and Luka dominated them.
That's a bad white boy right there.
Bad. He's to me, he's top 10. But if the Mavs had another guy that they can go to, if Porzingis was healthy, plus maybe a third scorer or somebody who's a real consistent deep threat, now are the Mavs better than the Clippers? And then you have a Mavs and Nuggets series, and then LeBron plays the winner out of them. we just don't know. Those are things that we obviously we speak about and kind of wish into fruition. But the Clippers narrative was definitely driven by the media. It was driven day one when Paul George and Kawhi went over to the other side of LA. I do think that LeBron would have beat the Clippers. I think that the experience would have helped there. But that's. Man, I would have wished to see the Clippers.
I think the reason why people was jumping on the Clippers bandwagon, me for one, was that depth, man. You had Doc Rivers, you had Ty Lue as the assistant coach. You got, Kawhi Leonard, who just won a championship over in Toronto. Mm-hmm. You got Paul George, who, he didn't show he didn't show up in this playoffs, but he is a top, two-wing player in the NBA, and so in that depth, you got, was it Chicken Wing Lou,
Chicken Wing Lou,
so nobody saw the depth of the Lakers really contributing much, right? You had AD, you had LeBron, and everything hinged on what AD was going to do and LeBron was going to do. Nobody expected this out of Rondo, and KCP had a good, a few games in the series. Dwight Howard in some games played with high energy. So, was this at the end of the day, Lakers can only play who they play because of the Clippers not living up to their own potential. They did what they were supposed to do. They won a championship. And so was this LeBron's easiest title run? I would have to say yes. And the biggest opponent or competition or toughest matchup was the Miami Heat, and they were even injured. You got Bam, who was hurt, Gargic, who was hurt. So, who knows? But at the end of the day, that's just kind of what happens when you play the game of basketball. So now we know that they won the championship. They won 17-4 for LeBron. Question, John, will the Lakers repeat this coming year? Is the pressure off LeBron because to solidify LeBron's greatness, he might have to win another one. So will the Lakers repeat?
Well, for the GOAT conversation, he has to win 2 more, right? Yeah, he has to have 6 just to be considered the GOAT. And that's to you. That's your opinion. But will the Lakers repeat?
That's not opinion, it's facts. 6 is greater than 4. All right, go ahead.
It is. But will the Lakers repeat? No. I mean, they built a team to win right now, and they did that. Every team is going to get healthy. Golden State's going to get healthy. The Nuggets are going to get better. We mentioned Dallas earlier; they're going to get better. And then on the East, I mean, Miami is only going to get better. They just started something great over in South Beach. Milwaukee with Giannis, I mean, they've got a couple pieces they need to add. I think that will make them a championship caliber team.
They need one more piece, man. If they can get a Bradley Beal, somebody who can create their own jump shot, Bucks is going to be a problem. I know we've been saying that, but Giannis needs help. He needs perimeter help.
Yeah, somebody to stretch the floor, and we'll talk about a little bit of the offseason later, but just someone to stretch the floor for Milwaukee, I think would be fantastic. And even Toronto, I mean, Toronto needs another guy, but someone to stretch the floor more for Kyle Lowry to get to the lane and allow some of those guards just to impact the paint the way that they do. But I don't think the Lakers will repeat. I mean, Rondo just opted out, KCP opted out, Dwight's going to be a free agent with that fantastic non-guaranteed deal that the Lakers signed him to, which was phenomenal for the Lakers. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of missing pieces. There's going to be some free agents, and this is a weak class, but there's going to be some free agents that the Lakers will, probably weigh heavily on to be some role players for them. But the West is only going to get harder next season. The Nuggets are going to be a top 3 seed. Golden State's going to be a top 1, top 2 NBA team. I don't see the Lakers being a top 3, maybe 4, 5 seed.
It's funny you say this, right? Because we just spoke a second ago, and this is something that we constantly see on ESPN and all social media outlets, that no one gave the credit to the Lakers for winning anything, right? They didn't even have them as a top 5 team. They probably had them in the 5th, 4th team to win the championship. They win the championship, and now we're asking the question, will the Lakers repeat? And again, we're going to repeat. Golden State will be better. Clippers, everybody's going to be better than the Lakers. But I think a lot of it had to do with, again, the offseason acquisitions. A lot of these key players are opting out. Are they going to re-sign? And a lot of it, LeBron is a year older. And I really believe that the bubble benefited someone like LeBron just because no wear and tear on the body in the sense of all this extra travel, different time zones, all of this crazy stuff. And it's going to be a different NBA season coming December. And, a team like the Clippers, not the Clippers, but the team like the Lakers have a shorter rest period, right? Mm-hmm. Is a bubble going to be in 7-8 different cities? Is it going to go back to how it was before? Is it going to be we don't know. So there's going to be different obstacles that they're going to have to, deal with. And at the end of the day, someone like AD and LeBron, LeBron, he's a little bit more veteran savvy than AD in regards to keeping the foot on the gas and coming out hungry. Or are they going to play more lax? Hey, we got our championship. We really don't care. The job is done. So my opinion with the Lakers repeat is going to be a tougher path. I don't think they'll repeat. I think everyone's kind of gunning for them. They kind of, I think all of the offseason moves, especially like the Clippers, are going to be focusing on what can we do to get ourselves in a position to really beat the Lakers. So less is more for them. The Bucks, that they can make some acquisitions. Golden State is a team that nobody's been talking about. We're going to speak about that here in a little bit. But I don't believe the Lakers will repeat. So sorry, Laker Nation. We don't believe the Lakers will repeat. So hopefully the Dodgers can give you another championship.
Oof,
so you can end up rejoicing and being happy with that, because at the end of the day, I don't think the Lakers are going to repeat. That's my opinion, just based on the offseason accusation. So one thing about the finals that we can all agree, and we talked about this, I'm a Jimmy Butler fan. It's kind of obnoxious. You're like, oh, you have a bias because he's a Bulls. Yeah. There was something about Jimmy that no one ever gave that brother credit for, man. Like, he's just a dog. He's just hard-nosed player. And so during the finals, Jimmy Buckets demonstrated to the world, like, I ain't no slouch, bro. I can hoop with the best of them. Had 2 triple doubles in the finals. Literally, the team, he carried his team to those 2 wins. I love the fact that, when he missed, I think he missed a layup and he was on the, on the bench, and he was just exhausted because he's giving his all, right? And he showed, like, hey, we don't have to have a triple double to win. He wanted to get his teammates involved, and he realized, well, no, maybe I have to carry this team. I believe Jimmy Butler revealed to the world that he's not just an all-star. But the question is, in your opinion, Jono, is Jimmy Butler a superstar? Talking about a 4A, a 4-star, 4.5-star, 5-star superstar.
I think he's close. I think he's close. You're not gonna like my response to this. I think he's close. I don't think right now that Jimmy Butler is a superstar. And here's why. And here's why. To me, you're a superstar if you dominate the game on a nightly basis. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. Now,
did you just mention Steph Curry?
I mentioned Steph. I'm not the biggest Steph fan. You know this. I'm not the biggest Steph fan.
Jono is the biggest Steph Curry hater there is out there. We're gonna leave that on another. We're gonna have that conversation later. But the fact that you mentioned Stephen Curry, that's huge. Go ahead, continue.
But it's true. I mean, if Jimmy Butler was able to get 40 points a night in the NBA Finals, then it changes my mind that he's a superstar. To me, he's a star. To me, he is someone that you can build around. Miami showed it. Now, those other teams, Minnesota, Philly, I don't know what they were thinking with maybe saying that Jimmy Butler was the problem. No, he was not the problem. Minnesota was the problem. Philly was a problem. Giving $200+ million to Al Horford and Tobias Harris, with all due respect, because I do like those ball players, but Jimmy Butler was not the problem in any of those franchises, and he showed that in Miami.
Here is how I'm going to destroy your argument, Jono.
Please go ahead.
Every single time that Jimmy has left a team, they got progressively worse. He had the LeBron James effect. Not only did he leave Minnesota got worse. and I love the story of him, picking a bunch of bench players, like the third stringers and like whipping the first stringers. And he said, "You need to pay me. I'm the man." Like after that, I think my love for Jimmy was just like magnified. I'm like,
yes, I remember reading that story.
Right?
That was amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So he feeds off of guys who are hungry just like him. He goes to Philly. You had Joel Embiid talking about like he was his favorite teammate. He actually toughened up more even after Jimmy left. He was like, saying I did this for Jimmy, like he had, Jimmy put something in Joel in those moments to try to, be tougher. He goes to Miami. Miami creates this beautiful culture of just a bunch of hard-nosed, unselfish guys who know their role. And they gave the keys to Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy was always a team guy because he said, I'm not the anchor of this team. Bam is, he kind of diverted, he yells at Duncan Robinson, "You better start shooting that ball." And to a default as a superstar, he was trying to adjust. How can I be an unselfish player for my teammates to get better? But this is the first time in this type of position. What's a hero was hooping. This is his first finals. And so when Jimmy Butler needed to elevate his game, he took that team and he showed that he is a superstar. Now, can he do it on a consistent basis? I don't think he needs to, but I believe a superstar is someone who says, my team is struggling. We need some buckets. We need a defensive play. We need, I need to make a correct pass. Jimmy Butler in those moments against the finals elevated himself to superstar status. And he not only did it once, he did it twice, and guarding LeBron James on the other, on the other end of the court. So I believe Jimmy Butler really caused a lot of coaches, GMs to raise their eyebrows and say, dang, he's not your flashy superstar. He's not the LeBron James. He's not this super athletic guy, but he's just a hard-nosed dude who has this underdog mentality that rises when he needs to. And all throughout Jimmy Bucket's career, especially in Chicago, he always hit timely shots. When they were down, whether they needed a run, whether they needed like an 8-0 spurt, he always made these big plays. So I think on the biggest stage, how do you respond? Jimmy responded. And I believe he superseded the Paul Georges of the world. He's up there with the Kawhi Leonards, right? Because you know what you're going to get with Jimmy. Jimmy to me is a superstar, someone you can build a team around, because Miami did. And look, he took that team to the Eastern Conference Finals. So come on, man. How's Jimmy Butler not a superstar?
Look, man, Jimmy's a dog. He's an absolute dog. I love the way he plays. He's got a very old school game kind of feel to his approach. Like you mentioned, he is a team player. If he's a superstar, and to your point, the team's getting worse. If he's a superstar, he should have elevated those teams the way a LeBron James and a Giannis or a Steph elevates the current teams that they're on. So for example, when he was traded to Minnesota, and it was a little bit mid-season, I think it was about maybe a month or two into the season, if he's a superstar, he should have elevated that team to more than an 8th seed in the West. You see what I'm saying? He should have elevated Philly to a win over Toronto. It should have never been.
Bro, that Philly team, we all know that coaching did not do that team any justice. Who was a star? Joel Embiid has the most talent, right? Ben Simmons had was the most gifted, and Jimmy Butler was kind of like the third tier star. So that's how they played him. But in those moments where they needed the biggest plays, it was Jimmy Butler who always stepped up. It wasn't Joel. It wasn't Ben. Then you have, in Minnesota, you had Tom Thibodeau over there, and you got to, he loved playing with Tibbs because he knows what to expect from Tibbs. And none of these other guys played hard. They just based everything on their talent. You got, Karl Anthony Towns, who is arguably a top 3 center in the league, just based on his talent. But Jimmy, you couldn't pull anything out of this guy, right? You got Andrew Wiggins, can drop 20 a night, but his motor and his body language is like he doesn't want to be there. So Miami created a culture that really allowed Jimmy Butler to thrive, to really allow him to be himself and not to be contained. So it's all about the culture. It's about the coaching, putting yourself in each, putting these players in a good atmosphere to allow the talents to really flourish. There is no question in Miami Heat. None of those players, there's no question that Jimmy Butler is their best player, and everything that team goes as far as Jimmy Butler's takes.
Right.
So,
he's their guy, and I was listening to Bill Simmons say this about last week, and he mentioned when an NBA star signs with a team, sometimes it's not always the best fit. I mean, we look at Al Horford with Philly, giving him a bunch of money, and it's not a good fit. Miami and Jimmy is the most perfect fit for both organization and player. And I think Jimmy is growing to the superstar status, and he showed that in the bubble. LeBron James won MVP or Finals MVP. Lakers won the championship, but Miami and Jimmy Butler benefited most from the bubble, and moving forward will benefit most from the bubble based off of their play and based off of how they play. I mean, guys eat that up. If I'm a free agent, I look at what Jimmy Butler did. I look at what Miami's doing. Spoelstra is already one of the best coaches in the league.
Very unselfish team.
Very
Everybody
unselfish.
Yep.
Why not want to play there? You know what I mean? Why not want to join that kind of system, that kind of culture, that kind of environment, and then play alongside Jimmy Butler, who showed in the bubble he'll go after anybody.
Yep.
He'll go after anybody. So this
is what hurts my heart, man. That Chicago did not see the value in him, right? You're like, why did you let this brother go? He bounced to different teams, and he solidified himself that this culture said, hey, we believe in you. You know, Pat Riley saw something in Jimmy that most GMs did not, most presidents didn't want to see. So you did mention something. We lived in Orlando, Florida, sunny Florida, hot Florida, COVID capital of the world, Florida. And we had the awesome privilege of not necessarily going to the bubble because we could have access there, but we was the state and the city that hosted the bubble for the NBA. And so it was a glorified AAU tournament. That's what it was. But what we saw in the bubble, the game was just, I think, in its purest form of basketball. There was no crowds to hype people up. It was just, you're in this, bubble, this atmosphere that you have to see these guys every single day. Basketball is you're eating, sleeping, and that's all you're doing is basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but the product that came out was an amazing product. So do you believe that the bubble was good for the NBA?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I mean, from a financial standpoint and not having fans, obviously it hurt them. But just from watching basketball as a fan of basketball, the NBA bubble was amazing. I mean, I don't remember the last time I was locked into so many basketball games because I knew it was going to be quality basketball. I'll be honest, I kind of shied away from watching the NBA because I just didn't feel like the basketball was as good, I mean, and just watching the bubble, I mean, it was hard-nosed basketball night in and night out. These guys were playing every other day, and it was, I mean, I can't say enough of what the NBA did to even have this bubble. So shout out to the NBA and Adam Silver for what they did.
Zero COVID cases.
Zero positive cases. Following protocols, wearing a mask. I mean, it was honestly remarkable. What they did was remarkable, and for the players to buy into it too, and for them to just have the season that they had in the bubble was amazing. I have nothing but great things to say about the bubble. I mean, the basketball was. I can't say this enough. The basketball was amazing. I thoroughly loved watching basketball in the bubble.
I agree. I think the bubble created and revealed a lot of guys that I don't think would have revealed. Like, I think earlier in the season, right before the playoffs began, you had Ty Warren hooping. Like
TJ Warren, yep.
TJ Warren, sorry. Yep. TJ Warren just hooping like
50 balls.
Brother, like, we was able to see the Devin Bookers of the world who, did a phenomenal job taking that Suns team and winning every single game in the bubble. We was able to see guys that we weren't able to see because who watches the Phoenix Suns? Who's going to watch an Indiana Pacers
Right.
games. So we got to see a lot of talent that we normally wouldn't see. We saw Jamal Murray blossom to a star, Donovan Mitchell as well. So I think the bubble created just the purity of basketball that we all kind of grew up, watching, participating, and just enjoying without the, hyping out for the crowd. But at the same time, it was a different mental shift. How can you get yourself emotionally and mentally prepared where there's no crowd chanting defense? There's no one,
Right.
celebrating, the game-winning jump shot or anything like that. So you can kind of see the guys who are the mentally strongest in that bubble. And so, of course, LeBron James, he showed that he can adjust to any any environment. We just talked about Jimmy Butler. There was a lot of guys who thrived in this bubble, and other guys who didn't. The Clippers, playoff P. I'm a big mental health advocate, but I can understand, his frustrations. Like, I was depressed. So some guys adjusted well, other guys didn't. But I believe that the bubble was good for the NBA. Just from a product standpoint, I think they was able to really showcase a lot of stars that we wouldn't have saw, if it was just, the regular basketball season. And so I agree, the bubble was good for the NBA. I hope that they do some sort of in-tournament type of, hopefully they can keep this model, man. Not one person analyst that I heard had any qualms about the bubble.
Yeah.
It was because it went back to the purity of the game of basketball. And so I think it was good. And shout outs to Adam Silver for, for putting on for pulling something that I didn't think was possible to pull off. So
right. And you touched on something here, Lo, that I want to bring to light too, is, the Devin Bookers of the world. I mean, he plays on the West Coast. We don't get those games on the East Coast until almost 10:30 at night. And to sit through an entire game, it's almost 2 a.m. before, we fall asleep. And I'll be honest, I can't tell you if I've ever sat through an entire game, that starts at 10:30, sometimes 11 o'clock at night, so just being able to see guys like Devin Booker and seeing Dame perform on a nightly basis, look, there's no surprise that Dame Lillard was able to do what he was doing in the bubble. We just didn't have a chance to see it because his games come on so late. Right. You know what I mean? So just being able to see that and having all the same games on the same time zone, as very little of like an adjustment that is for the NBA, because they're so used to staggering these games. It was very beneficial for us as fans to see everybody playing at the same time, everybody playing in the same place.
There was no home court advantage. There was nothing. You just had you got to come in, you got to execute. And who has that will that, to kind of carry the team in those moments where you don't have the crowd, as I mentioned, the crowd behind you, or, these biased calls that refs sometimes make because you're in your home court and they feel the pressure from the crowd. None of that. I think.
Let me ask you this, Lo. Let me ask you this. As a basketball player, right, you have your rituals before a game. You have your superstitions, per se. How do you adjust to an NBA bubble system when your superstition or your ritual from a home game or an away game is completely different compared to just being at a hotel room and a resort before you play?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you kind of heard some of these guys kind of go back to their AAU days to say, okay, what was my routine, right? Like, what would I do to relax, to be relaxed and be the most mentally prepared for these 3 games I have to play in 4 nights, right? Or whatever the case may be. So for me, there's routines or certain things that you have to do. And this is what makes the average basketball player, and be separated from the greats. They know how to adjust. So whatever your routine may be, right? What can I keep? What's the norm? What can I do that is normal, that I normally do outside of this environment, that I can incorporate in this bubble? So if I take my naps at 9 a.m., if I eat at this certain time, if I shower, if I watch my favorite show, whatever it is, what can I do to try to keep my mind, try to keep the schedule or my routine as consistent as possible in this new environment. So, and again, you heard players express that on a consistent basis. Some guys adjusted well, other guys didn't adjust well. And so it just took a different mental, trying to figure out how do I normalize this abnormal, situation and to maximize my potential. So that's what I typically do. Okay, what's my routine typically, and how can I incorporate it in this new situation that I'm in? We're going to jump into our next segment. We're going to talk about the NBA draft. We just got word that Adam Silver will be beginning the NBA season Christmas Day. Whoop, whoop. Excited about that. Great Christmas gift. And it will proceed until a little bit into the summer, right before the Olympics start. So with this NBA draft class, I know as Jono made mention, it's not a very strong draft class. Now I'll give it to him. He is, him with his experience as an AAU coach and his love for amateur sports. He is far more knowledgeable about these guys coming out of college or even high school players going into college than I am. But nonetheless, in this NBA draft, what are some of your expectations and what do you see coming out of this NBA draft, Jono?
I see a lot more draft trades than original team selections. The big question is Golden State at number 2. What are they going to do? Are they going to pick James Wiseman from Memphis, or are they going to trade the number 2 pick and get a player who can contribute now? I think they should trade it. I also know that if they decide to keep it and select someone, they are going to be well over the luxury tax with that salary that they're going to give that new rookie at number 2. So that's like the biggest question that's everybody is talking about right now. What's Golden State doing at number 2? Anthony Edwards out of Georgia, shooting guard, is going to be the lock number 1 for Minnesota. I can't see them going elsewhere. They need a guy who can score. They need a guy who can get a bucket. Every team needs that, and that is what Minnesota has been lacking for the last several years. So, in regards to
based on your predictions, you don't think LaMelo is going to go number 1?
No, he'll go number 2 if Golden State does keep the pick. I mean, it's the perfect situation for him to go number 2, and if they keep the pick.
Wait, why would LaMelo Ball go to Golden State Warriors?
Well, if he does go there, he's got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to learn from, to learn how to get a shot off, to learn to move without the ball, something that a lot of scouts were kind of nitpicking around his game. The guy's a playmaker. He played professional in Europe and in Australia. We know he can score. His shot has gotten a lot better, his mechanics. And we know that if he plays behind Steph and plays behind Klay, I mean, he could potentially be the third Splash Brother.
Listen to what you're saying. You think that the Golden State Warriors, who are in a win now situation, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson are not getting any younger. They're getting older. No. And you think that they're going to waste a draft pick on drafting LaMelo Ball in hopes to develop him and not use him? Listen, I think the Golden State Warriors are going to have to trade that second pick. If Minnesota, I believe that Minnesota, if they are going to draft anybody, it should be LaMelo Ball. I'm not a big fan of the Ball family per se. I know, there's a lot of hype, not a lot of substance. The oldest brother kind of showed glimpses that he can be a contributor to the NBA. Great defensive guy. His shot is whack. He needs to learn from me how to shoot. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I can't do. All the rest of the stuff, he can leave it to the professionals. But I think that you can move D'Angelo Russell to the 2 because he has shown that he can play as an off guard if they're going to keep it. But yeah, this draft, there's no solidified number 1 draft pick for any of these teams. So it's basically going to be drafting on need. So if Golden State does end up selecting, I think there's going to be Wiseman from Memphis. Very athletic,
which is possible. Very, very, very possible.
And if that's the case, then I think they should keep it. If for whatever reason Wiseman, goes number 1, which I doubt he will, just because he,
I can't see that.
Towns. But I think that the Golden State Warriors should trade that second pick. They said with Andrew Wiggins. I think Andrew Wiggins is that third player that you need to kind of, be able to create his own jump shot and create buckets. The man did average, 19 points in Minnesota, and that's just on his skill set, right? Like you could tell he wasn't really into games most of the time. His body language he just scored 19 points just based on his athletic talents. So being in Golden State, working with, the Draymond Greens of the world, the Klay Thompsons of the world, the Currys of the world, and just Steve Kerr, who can, get a lot out of his players, I think it'll be beneficial. Trade the second pick for a couple of, role players, solidify that bench. I think that would be the best route for Golden State to take. Other than that, yeah, I think I have to agree with you. You're going to probably see a lot more trades in this draft, in this NBA draft, than you are going to see these solidified, bona fide stars coming out.
Right.
And so what is some of your draft night trades and predictions?
Well, I give you this bold prediction here. I'll tell you that Chris Paul will get traded on draft night. To who? I think it's going to be my Knicks.
I wish I had a sound effect. Pew! Hold on. What do you think Chris Paul is going to get traded to, first and foremost? That's for he's getting paid $40 million at 36. Yeah. I can barely make 36,000.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what I mean? So he's doing good for himself, but he showed that he's a capable point guard who can still contribute on a high level. But you're saying he's going to get traded NBA draft night. Where do you think he's going to get traded to?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for OKC to keep him. Just with all the draft picks they have, they benefited from the bubble. They were another team that benefited from the bubble. They weren't even supposed to be as good as they were. I mean, they took Houston to 7 games, and it was because an undrafted, rookie out of Arizona State. I can't pronounce the young man's name, so I don't want to butcher it, but he locked up James Harden, and Chris Paul showed that he can lead a team. All those question marks that came up in Houston, in LA on the back end of his career with the Clippers, of him leading a team, he showed that he can do it in Houston. Now,
with less inferior talent.
With less talent, right. And I meant to say OKC. I said Houston, but OKC. So, I think Chris Paul gets traded. I would love to see him get traded to the Knicks. I think the Knicks have a lot of young talent that they can give over to OKC. Do they give up the 8th pick in this draft? That I don't know, because it's a weak draft, but there's still some value that you can possibly get at 8. I think Cole Anthony would be there. I think there's a couple power forwards, from the SEC that are valuable at number 8. But I think Chris Paul gets traded. That's my bold prediction. And to even,
not really bold if you don't tell me where he's getting traded to. Where do you think he's getting traded to?
I think he gets traded to the Knicks. I mean, he has a lot of ties in New York. I do, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Knicks fan. I think he gets traded to the Knicks. There's already been some trade proposals, and obviously this is just some people writing and talking.
Knicks fan. It must be horrible you being a Knicks fan.
It is.
Knicks
it's tough being
Giants fan. Just horrible for you, isn't it?
It's tough. New York sports are not booming right now.
You're just clinging on to anything. We're going to get Chris Paul. So what if he's 37, 38 years old and y'all get all these stars like way past their primes. It's sad.
And we get the stars that are before their prime.
Bulls fan, but who, the team that had a worse record than us was you guys. And so, we know our expectations are not that great.
Yeah, we're not going to be good. It's going to be a while for the Knicks to be good, but on draft night, they got to make a splash. They got a brand new coaching staff. Thibs needs someone who's a leader. We've got too many young guys that he can't count on right now. I mean, they're just not fully developed in the league. Mitchell Robinson is the center that we build around. RJ Barrett, last year's pick. Someone else to build around. We're still building around Frank. And I mean, I don't know how long that project is going to take. Still waiting on Kevin Knox to, figure it out. And he got drafted super young. I think he was 18 coming in the league. So a lot of figuring out for the Knicks specifically, but in regards to just predicting what happens on draft night, I don't think Golden State keeps that number 2 pick. And I do think Chris Paul is on the move.
All right. So that's Jono's bold prediction. I do think that Houston Rockets are going to do something during the NBA draft. That team currently constructed, they aren't going to go far. As much as
they just lost their GM. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, well, I would have stepped down too after that disaster that was the bubble. So, small ball is fun to watch. Golden State has been the only team that has actually profited and won, playing small ball. But at the same time, they didn't strictly play small ball. They knew how to adjust, right? They did have their bigs, the Andrew Bogut's of the world, the McGee's of the world. So Golden State gonna have to make some sort of trade. You can't get rid of Westbrook and Harden just because their contracts are too crazy bigs, but maybe try to get younger, more athletic, better shooters. Well, they have the shooters, but you just got to get.
I just don't know what that team is. I just don't know what they're doing. I mean, the small ball lineup worked because Daryl Morey, he believed in it. So he got guys that, and he did. And he got guys that can shoot. And that was all that they did. And now with, I don't know, have they hired a new coach yet? I mean, they're still figuring out their coaching situation.
Interviewing Van Gundy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just a mess right now. And they don't have enough money to spend. And they don't have enough money just they don't have enough assets to give back. So I don't know where they stand. If I'm Harden, if I'm Westbrook, if I want to win, I'm going to ask for a trade no matter what. Harden, I don't know. I'm not sold on Harden sometimes. Sometimes I feel like he's good. And other times I feel like he's a
he's a superstar in the regular season. Come to the postseason, he's a jag, as Max Kellerman will say. He's just another guy.
He really is.
He has star potential, but he doesn't live up to it. On any given night. I would have to say I think Clippers might make a move draft night. I think they're going to try to do the less is more thing. They have so much talent, but their chemistry was killing them. They definitely need a point guard. Do they make a trade back for CP3? Who knows, right?
That would have to work there anymore. Financially.
But you get rid of some trade pack. I don't know the finances and how that would work out. Or even sign, Rondo to try to, hold the fort down. Who knows? But I think number one, LaMelo Ball will go to the Timberwolves. Number two, Wiseman, and then your boy from Georgia will go number three. I don't know anything about this Israeli guy. I'm very reluctant when it comes to international.
He's young. He's young, and those
I don't know none about none. Those
international guys are always a question mark. I mean, look, it's honestly a 1 in a 20 opportunity where a guy from overseas blossoms into an NBA star. I mean, we look at Dirk, we look at Luka, we look at Giannis. Giannis was unknown. He played B-level pro basketball in Greece.
Right.
And look what he's doing now.
So you basically just told me that's who the Knicks are going to be drafting.
No, man. If the Knicks draft some international guy who doesn't ever play again, I will be very upset. I don't know what I would do.
To our last question, because I am unapologetically a Chicago Bulls fan, have been ever since the days of MJ, and as Jono confessed to the world, he is a Knicks fan. So you already know
die hard.
Horrible. It's just miserable, just a miserable life as a sports fan, and we're both Mets fans. So that, we have to deal with that in the off season. And then he has to transition over to basketball and watch Knicks basketball. So we're going to end off on the segment. We're going to end this podcast to talk about our two favorite teams. Now I will start with the Chicago Bulls. I am super, super, super excited about the Billy Donovan hire. It's going hire. To, he showed that he can coach, that he can, adjust to different personalities, with the KDs of the world, to maximizing less for more, and so CP3, I think, really earned his respect. And so I can't wait to see what he develops in Chicago. I'm excited about the GM that we hired. And so if he can do anything he did in Denver, in Chicago, we have hope for the future. I'm really wanting to see that young talent developed. I know we've dealt with injuries. Wendell Carter Jr., another Dookie. He has shown that he has flashes of being a great defensive anchor. Zach LaVine, I thought he should have been an all-star this year. And
that's who you need to build around.
Yeah, and this idea that he's a second, third-tier star, like the brother, he's a walking bucket, man. He just needs to be able to put a culture. Lauri Markkanen, that's going to be huge. Can he? He's been regressing, and I think a lot of it has to do with coaching and having him a spot up 3-point shooter. He needs to get more back to the basket, kind of uses aggression. So they have a core nucleus that I think Billy Donovan can really extract from. I believe we have the 4th pick. Is it the Bulls got the 4th pick?
Yep, got the 4th pick.
So we have the 4th pick. I know they've been looking at this kid from Ohio and the other Israel, the other guy from the international basketball player. Whatever we do, we need to really live up and play up to the potential. Kobe White, can he continue to be a bucket getter that we saw at UNC? So they have a young, nice nucleus, and so I'm really excited about Billy Donovan's hire. It's just going to create a culture, especially for young talent, and I think that's what needs to be done. Can you develop these young stars and playing up to to their potential? What they'll do with the 4th pick, we'll see. This guy from the kid from Ohio, what's his name? Not Ohio,
Obi?
sorry, from Dayton.
Obi.
Super
Toppin.
athletic. Yeah, super athletic, but I don't see anything else.
I like Obi. No,
You do?
I like Obi. He dominated this year. I mean, he should have gotten every single Player of the Year award that was out there.
Is he a 3 though? He looks like a hybrid.
He's listed at 6'9", so which really means he's about 6'7". We know how the NBA does it. So I would put him as a small forward next to Zach LaVine, and my biggest question, honestly, Lo, and maybe you can answer this with the Bulls, is it going to work with a scoring point guard and a scoring shooting guard and Kobe White and Zach LaVine? Is that combination going to work?
That's a very good question. Honest question. I think we struggled a lot with point guard play. We got the kid Thomas. I can't pronounce his name. The guy that we just got from the Wizards, a long athletic guy, to be our starting point guard. I think Kobe White will be a great 6-man. And I wouldn't even mind, trading for a Chris Paul to solidify that point guard position and allow, really orchestrate that offense. I wouldn't mind seeing that, and all the while getting Kobe White to be developed into that guy. I think they need a facilitator. They need somebody who can really can they? Zach LaVine needs the ball. I think, with our last coach, he put the ball way too much in his hands. He's much better as an off scorer, and he can create when needs to. Just, you can't have him do that in every possession, right? Because all the defenses lock in on Zach LaVine, cause a turnover. That's it, right? So I think Kobe White will be a phenomenal 6-man if we can solidify that point guard position. But I'm excited. We'll see what the offseason is going to look like. You're saying you like the Obi, what's his last name?
Obi Toppin. I like Obi. I like
that is
Obi,
a horrible name. Just to let Obi Toppin.
He's athletic. He's a 4-year guy.
That's all I've seen was just dunks. I'm like, okay, but does he have a mid-range game? Can he hit 3-pointers? Is he a defensive guy? So if they draft him at 3, I'm not, overly upset. But the real question is, what is your Knicks gonna do? You got Tom Thibodeau.
Oh man.
So he's gonna, you already know that all your players are gonna be playing 50 minutes a game and gonna wear them out. But
this is something I've asked myself for years. What are the Knicks doing? Right? Like what's the Knicks plan? Like, when you have a business, you have a business plan. The Knicks have a franchise, and I don't think they have a plan. I think they just draft players and hope that these guys can play basketball. And it's a little bit upsetting. Actually, it's very upsetting as a Knicks fan, because there's always hope that we're going to be good or relevant. I tell you right now.
You guys give yourself this hope. I don't know where this hope comes from. Because Jono,
it's a New York thing.
No. I'm going to have to know, because we had our arguments where you try to convince me that the current team of the Knicks, the currently constructed, was going to compete for a playoff spot. I'm like, bro, like you really try to convince me. Oh, we got Ty Gibson. Knox is going to be phenomenal. Oh man, this is a solid team. I was like, bro, you got number power forwards. You got a point guard who sounds
like a hopeful conversation.
Yeah, that's all it was. He was trying to spit. He's trying to speak to me hope. There was no hope for this Knicks organization. The Tom Thibodeau, hire is up in the air. He did phenomenal, in Chicago, but he had guys who bought into his system. It didn't work in Minnesota. Plus he was the GM. I'm always, skeptical when a coach is a GM and a basketball coach.
Too much power there. I mean, I think from a Knicks standpoint, because we are young, because we have guys who I think our average age is like 21, 22. I mean, we're one of the youngest teams in the league. I think in that respect, those guys are going to buy into what Thibs is teaching. I think the new president that the Knicks hired, Drake's boy, is going to bring culture. It's going to bring a fan base back to the city that we've missed for the last 20 seasons.
The fan base never gone nowhere. What fan base? There's no fan base that's left.
I mean, they're not watching games at the Garden.
It's almost as obnoxious as Cowboy fans. Like, we just hired this guy to bring. Knicks fans are always going to be Knicks fans. They don't leave being a Knicks fan. It's just you guys are a lot more silent when you guys are not doing well. So there's a difference. But if y'all start hearing all these Knicks fans come out of nowhere, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
But I'm excited about this upcoming NBA season, especially for what the Bulls, have in store. As a Knicks hopeful, Jono is trying to convince himself that there's light at the end of this dark tunnel. But overall, we're just excited for this NBA season coming up in December, Christmas Day. Whether there's going to be multiple bubbles, we don't know. But this is why we enjoy the game of basketball in this NBA league, just because, this commission has been top notch. And so they're not afraid of taking chances. And I think with this bubble, they took a shot and it worked. And I think now people can kind of go back and say, hey, we can kind of adjust, the NBA season and still give a good product out. So we're going to conclude, just want to say thank you so much for guys tuning in. If you have any questions that you guys would like for us to talk about or address, shoot them in the comment section, shoot it to us and we'll make sure to put it in our future episodes. But until next time, guys, this is your boy Lo and Jono.
It's your boy Jono here. Peace and love. One of many podcasts here to come here in the future.
Peace and love, guys. So check us out on your favorite podcast platform, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure to tune us in, subscribe, follow us, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Bench Warmers. Until next time, guys. Peace.